Mineral Resources and Energy Minister Gwede Mantashe says South Africa must continue to pursue mixed energy technology in order to address the current power challenges. Mantashe has again reiterated that South Africa's move to renewables will not undermine the country's energy security. South Africa has been struggling to keep the lights on, with Eskom implementing power cuts to avoid the collapse of the grid altogether. Clyde Mallison is an energy expert and joins us tonight to talk more about the minister's remarks, Clyde, and a lot of focus in his address on wind energy. Give us a very basic understanding of what it is and how much it can do to help us.
Thanks, Tim Bakili. Yeah, I had to use the cliche to say that it's good to see the minister being lifted by the winds of change, as it were. And wind on its own is extremely useful, but it forms a troika, really. So wind, solar, and storage are like the front row in a scrum, if you like. The three of them together are almost unstoppable. But it's great to see the minister speaking as a keynote speaker at the Windaba in Cape Town. And I get the sense that if he were bold enough to take the step to broaden the people that he takes advice from, he would surprise even himself at what is possible in South Africa.
And just on what he was talking about as far as wind energy is concerned, he said this, it's delivered 3,000 megawatts from 32 projects as of the end of March. Is that impressive?
Well, considering that we need 50,000 megawatts of wind by 2035, it's a good start, but a slow start, quite frankly.
And are the plans that government has announced so far, do you think, good enough to get us to that point in line with the deadline?
No. So what I would like to put out as a challenge to the minister, not just Minister Mantashe, but Minister Gwede, to the president, in fact, to the new board of Eskom, to the executive of Eskom, the problems with the coal fleet at this stage reside with the artisans in the trenches. If we want to know what the potential of the coal fleet is, the existing coal fleet, I would go and ask the artisans. I wouldn't ask the chairman of the board, I wouldn't ask the minister, I wouldn't ask the president. I would ask the people who are tasked to fixing and keeping the coal fleet running. And those people need to be given a message of hope that we've got reinforcements coming in the form of wind, solar and storage. So we're not expecting you to perform a miracle with the coal fleet. Now, I think it was Minister Gwede, but it's also been others who have said that everything, or a lot, hinges on our ability to increase the so-called energy availability factor of the coal fleet, and that we should set a very high target in the sense of being aspirational, to encourage people to aspire to higher levels. Well, the problem with aspirational targets like that is they are often not grounded in fact. And the fact is that the energy availability of the coal fleet has been on the decline for the last 17 years. And to suddenly turn it around and expect it to increase is quite frankly not based on reality. So the aspirations I would like to set or see set by our politicians, cabinet ministers, Eskom board is the following. By 2035, we should aim to triple our electricity output in South Africa and halve the cost in 2022 Rand terms. Now, that is aspirational, but what's more important, it's based on fact. It's possible to do that. And imagine how exciting that would be for our economy if we were to triple electricity output at half the current cost. My goodness, it would be life-changing to so many South Africans, to industry, to mining, to people who currently have electricity but make little use of it because they simply can't afford it. And that's what I would call an aspirational target. And so I challenge the generals, if you like, to aspire to something more than trying to imagine that we can bring an old unreliable coal fleet back to its former glory. Ain't going to happen.
Can that happen then, that the aspirational goal was less coal in the mix? Because as problematic as coal is for the environment, the reality is it's easily accessible, burns quicker, so it's often the sort of a solution at your fingertips, if you will.
Well, it doesn't matter how much coal we have. It depends on the number of coal-fired power stations, and we all know the story of Medupi and Kasidi. We needn't go there. But the reality is that if we had an infinite amount of coal with our existing coal fleet, we couldn't get any more out of the coal fleet. Coal is like petrol, and if you haven't got a car, it doesn't matter how much petrol you've got, it doesn't take you anywhere. So we need to focus on the coal fleet. We know that it takes somewhere between 8 and 10 years to build a new coal-fired power station, so it's not going to help us in the short or the medium term. And we have to go to the artisans who are looking after the existing coal fleet to get a proper understanding of what's possible. And then we need to say to them, can you give me 180 terawatt hours this year? And they'll look at each other and say, man, it's a tight call, but I think we can do it. And here's the clincher. You then say next year we only need 160. And next year we need 140. In other words, you set declining targets of expected production from the coal fleet. And you'll suddenly find a new burst of life amongst those artisans.
I'm looking at something else that was attributed to the minister in the reporting on his speech today, where he suggested that South Africa needs to move more towards a mix of renewables coupled with nuclear until wind and solar can provide affordable energy at scale. Your thoughts?
Well, they can already provide affordable energy at scale, and it's going to become more affordable in the future. So that's why I set that target of triple the output at half the current cost. And I think where the minister and many others get things wrong when they talk about an energy mix, at the moment we are so dominated by non-renewable technologies that quite frankly we need to put renewable technologies only in for the next 10 years at least, just to get a 50-50 balance. If we're talking about an energy mix, then the renewables are starting off such a low base that in order to get it up to 50-50, you would only need, if you put any new fossil fuel into the mix, you're going to make it more difficult to get to that balance. And so it's not so much a balance of what we install as new that we need to look at. We need to look at the balance of what we've already got. And clearly, given that we've got so little in renewable at this stage, in order to redress that balance, and heaven knows in this country we know all about redressing balance, we have to preferentially give new build to renewables just in order to get a 50-50 gender mix, if you could call it that.
What about nuclear, briefly, Clyde? Have we sort of thrown the baby out of the bathwater on that one, you think?
No, look, nuclear will take at least 10 years to build, so it can't help us in the short term. It can't help us in the medium term. And quite frankly, nuclear will be way out of place in the future. I'm talking about a fleet by 2035 that will have in excess of 100 megawatts of solar, kind of 50 megawatts of wind, 35 megawatts of storage. And then you come along and say, oh, and we've got 2.5 megawatts of nuclear. Well, it won't even cause a flicker on the graph, as it were. And then, of course, when the nuclear has to be refueled, where there's a 5-week shutdown, it's literally like having 5 weeks with no sunshine. And then you ask yourself, well, who's going to cover for that nuclear when it's being refueled? And the answer is, well, the coal fleet. And you say, no, the coal fleet will be shut down by then. And you say, okay, well, I guess wind and solar and storage. And, the line goes that if it can cover for 5 weeks, surely it can cover for 10 weeks. And if it can cover for 10 weeks, it basically can cover forever. And so nuclear in the future will be out of place, expensive, unnecessary. And hey, if it shows that there's a nuclear solution in future that can play a significant role from a cost perspective, then bring it on. I'm not anti-nuclear. It's
Clyde
just
Mallison.
crazy at the moment, cost-wise.
On that point, thank you very much for your time tonight.